and welcome to Clamp, the Creating, Living, and Making Projects podcast. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Adam Mackey and Jessy Radfink. And this week, we're going to talk about our attention spans, not our extension spans, our attention spans, because it's really been something that I've been dealing with a lot, and Adam has apparently as well. He talked about earlier trying to watch a movie, and I'm sure he has the same problem I have, where if I put on a movie, there's like a 10 seconds, maybe. I don't know how long it actually is. It feels like an hour of something that isn't action. I'm reaching to my pocket to pull out my phone. And I think that's a problem. And I want to talk about it. And I also want to talk about why it's not a problem. And so we'll first start it off with why it's a problem. So Adam, why don't you just tell us what happened with you and how you were feeling in that moment?
So today I was watching a movie. Yeah, disregard that noise. Today I was watching a movie and I just realized that I don't have the attention span for movies like I used to. It's the first movie I've watched in quite a long time, probably at least 6 months. I usually either watch YouTube or TV shows. And I was watching The Equalizer 1 and the intro for it, like the B-roll intro, went for a good 60 to 90 seconds. And I was thinking to myself, if this was a YouTube video right now, I'd either be turning it off or putting it on 2x speed because it was draining. And I just thought, like, has YouTube ruined me in the sense of this sort of editing or what?
So we'll start with the long intros because it is something that kills me about shows. Like shows in the old days, and even a long time ago, would have super long intros where like every single character got introduced and they'd all like look at the camera and like smile. It's like the Hand Tool. If you watch Hand Tool Rescue, you'll see his like intro is like an 80s montage of what's going on in his shop, but he keeps it at least interesting that every once in a while he switches it up. But I remember when Lost came out, and I'm sure there was other shows before this, but I remember Lost having like a 3-second intro, and that was it. And that was like it blew my mind because I think it just like it is something that changed how we do things. And there's a bunch of YouTube people that have long intros, or even people on Instagram Reels that have like this intro to their reel that like spells out their like logo or something. And I'm like, you've lost me, especially if you put it on every single reel. Some people put them at the end even, and I'm like, you're ruining your attention for it.
Yeah, I like those people because I can just skip it. I've already seen the content. It's like the people that do their Patreon shout outs at the end of the show, like the very end. And I'm like, okay, cool. Patreon shout out. Time for me to turn this off.
Right. And that's why a lot of creators end up like giving that up and not doing it anymore, is because it ruins their video retention. And it's like the algorithm is making it so that we have a lower attention span. Right? Like the only reason people ever watch the credits of movies is that there might be a post-credit scene.
Yep. And you can tell as soon as it goes to like the black screen with it scrolling through that it's definitely not going to be an after credit scene.
Except sometimes.
Really? Because I thought it was only if it was like the not scrolling credits.
No, I've seen post credits after scrolling credits. I've seen a movie where they did both, where they did like a post and then a post, like a PS and a PS. Like,
well, it's good when you go to the cinema because they don't turn the lights on straight away if there's a post credit.
I never noticed that. Yeah, that makes sense. So, Jessy, you're the movie person. You watch all the movies and TV shows, I'm sure. Do you feel there's some sort of that regular media or even social media has influenced our attention spans, or are we influencing media? Which way do you think it is?
Mm, honestly, I think that more than anything right now, we as consumers are influencing the media.
Interesting.
Short form video content is something that is on a lot of like CEOs' minds. You know, I hear about it at work a lot. And I know a lot of other big companies are thinking about it as well. And it's, you know, when
Hmm.
you think about the way that people, I don't, maybe this isn't as common outside of like the horror movie thing, but there are a ton of horror fans that complain constantly that like your movie doesn't need to be 2 hours. And I'm one of those people
Yeah.
because I just, with the way that, I don't know, content has moved, I do not want to spend a lot of time in scenes that don't advance the plot. I don't want to spend a lot of
Yeah.
time on a show song or a like title sequence that gives me nothing. I
Right.
just, yeah, I don't have the patience for that sort of stuff. And I think more, I am very picky about how it's edited and how it's presented. Something that I can never handle is if I feel like things aren't going anywhere, which is where I struggle a lot with YouTube videos because there are a lot of people that just sort of talk up top or they promise something and then never really seem like they're getting to it and I'll click off. So I either need to be impressed right away. But I would say I normally give things like a half hour because I don't consume as much short form like
Right.
video as y'all do. So I tend to give things like a pretty sizable chunk of time before I say fuck it. But yeah, it has to be something that catches my attention or from a creator that I trust that I'm like willing to invest the time in. I don't know.
I
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten more picky.
I don't think I can recall a video where I clicked on like and I didn't give it halfway through the video, right?
Mhm.
Like if unless it is like complete like I'm researching a topic and it's not relevant, right? Like but if I'm like watching it to try and have an entertainment, I can't think of a video where I didn't give them the like at least 50% viewing of that video before I said, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And when it comes to maker videos, I can't even think of one off the top of my head where I
I
didn't watch the video.
I clicked on a video yesterday and it was a motorbike rebuild and I got 30 seconds in and it was still intro of like you know
Uh,
those people that do like it's like them driving in a car and like the whole you can just tell the intro is just like cuts from all different videos. And it was still going after like 30 seconds. I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching this and just turned it off. I didn't even skip
right.
past the intro. I was like, I'm not even going to give you the chance.
So then it is us. So we're, and this is where I saw like a someone who worked for YouTube worked on the algorithm for YouTube, and he said what you need to do is it replace anytime you say, you know, am I pleasing the algorithm? You need to say, am I pleasing the audience?
Yeah.
Right? And there's a little bit of that, and obviously the algorithm plays into a little bit of, well, if the algorithm's refusing it to show it to anyone, even my audience, then it doesn't really matter. Well, if I replace the word algorithm with audience because they didn't show it to
Mhm.
anyone at all, anyways. But right, like, so there's that. But I think I think there is something to be said about like you need to engage people earlier now because there is a plethora of content available to us. And by
Yeah.
having so much choice, that's great. It is amazing. It's wonderful that everyone can find something that they love. But at the same time, it's obviously problematic because it has made it so that we're losing some artistic license when it comes to certain things,
Yeah.
right? Like Jesse, you might give people 30 minutes, but a lot of people aren't going to give that much, right? And I know I'm watching some shows I want to know the answer to. I want to know the next thing, and I'm feeling myself go, I need to check, my phone right now because whatever they're doing is not exciting and I don't care. right? And it doesn't seem to be related. And so that's probably bad writing, but it could actually just be that I'm not immersed enough, right? Like, and I'm not allowing myself to be immersed enough. And that's probably because I watch too much garbage.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I also choose to watch things so that I just have it on in the background while I play on my phone. Like my wife
So
and
this
I are
is
currently rewatching Two and a Half Men, and we just play on our phones the whole time.
something when I was in university, or even like growing up, I always had a TV on in the background. In my house growing up, we had 7 TVs and 5 people. Every room had a TV.
Okay.
No matter where you went, we had a TV. It was great in some ways, but in other ways, I look back on it and like there wasn't a lot. There wasn't like a way to get away from it. You always just had a TV on in the background. So when I went away to university, I always had a TV beside my computer. Now I could not do that. I could not concentrate and do anything but watch the TV. Right? Like I can no longer split my focus the way I used to be able to, and I think it has a lot to do with I'm demanding. I will go. I won't. I'm not watching a TV show anymore. I'm watching these like crazy YouTube videos that are like giving me too much all the time, and that's where I think
Yeah.
it's actually bad. The way that we've developed, it's actually worse. We're almost like addicted. Well, I know I'm addicted to watching this garbage on the phone. That's why I deleted TikTok from my thing. But then all the other companies were like, we need to make TikTok type things. So now I'm
Mhm.
watching them on the other area, things. And the algorithms there have gotten better. So now I'm just stuck watching TikToks on my Instagram, right? Like,
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about today, like why I haven't been watching movies and stuff, and I actually was thinking I actually prefer to watch YouTube. Like I'm, I haven't watched any new movies that I've wanted to watch because I have too much on YouTube to watch.
right. So I guess when we look at this problem with your attention, is it your attention span or not? Whatever you want to talk about, however you want to look at it,
Hmm.
is it a problem? And obviously for some people it is. But how do you deal with that? Right? Like, what are your strategies for trying to deal with? If you do think it's a problem, what are you trying to deal with it? Like, how do you deal with it? So I know I was reading some author who had like a little bit of a problem with Twitter. So what they did is they would delete Twitter from their phone. And if they wanted to tweet something, they had to download it. They had to do their little tweeting or twittering or Xing or whatever the hell you want to call it today. And at the end of it, whenever they were done that session, they deleted it from their phone again. So they
So
put
it
a
became such a big
barrier,
task.
right? If you had to really want to do it, and
Yeah.
so that's where this like I did that with TikTok, and I've never installed it again because I deleted it. And I
Hmm.
went, if I want to do it, now I've gone on TikTok like 3 times on my phone on my computer, which is not a good experience on your computer if you've ever tried. So, are there any other uh like ways that you've dealt with this thing? Like, I don't know. I'll let you guys come up with something. I've got another answer, but I'll let you guys talk. And if you say it, then I just won't do it. I won't say it.
So, therapy Jessy talking again. I think it's really important to be conscious of why and how you're consuming what you're consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you really need to be there if you're trying to avoid all, all reality around you by just staring at videos? Or is this something that you've been looking forward to that you decide to put all your attention into because it like brings you joy?
Right.
Because I do think a lot of people just sort of do things mindlessly these days because there is so much that you can interact with and watch videos on. And there's just so many devices that we have in our homes that can do a ton of stuff that involves media. There's no reason for you to sit in the quiet because you always have something there that can keep you company. And I was sort of struggling with that for a little bit because I've worked from home for like almost 8 years now. And I think I was just lonely and just wanted things on, but I wasn't actually paying good attention to them. I just felt that it
Right.
was required, and actually realized that I stress myself out more because I am trying to pay pretty good attention to the other thing while doing whatever else I'm doing. And so I'm actually just agitating myself instead of doing something that I enjoy. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess all of that to say, just think about why you're consuming what you're consuming. It might not be a big deal, but maybe you should be more mindful about it.
I think that is a great thing to bring up, is being mindful and being intentional about what you're doing. And it's something
Mm.
I've really struggled with. A lot of people like talk about, like, if you know you want to make something but you don't know what you want to make, just go out and clean up your shop. And I'm like, I'm not being intentional then. I'm not using my time. Like, it can be good, that can be great if your thing is, I just want to get away and I want to do something productive. That can be, that you're being intentionally, like, cleaning your shop is productive. No matter how you look at it, it's going to be slightly more productive than sitting on your butt watching TikTok videos. But yeah, sometimes you just want to escape. That escape is necessary. But, you know, I think personally, the escape of TikTok or Reels or short form content or even YouTube videos or even TV or movies isn't the best way to escape. Uh, sometimes you need to have time set aside to allow your mind, and you need to be intentional about it. And it's really difficult. And I've struggled with this all the time, to just set aside time where you're not listening to a podcast, you're not watching a video, you're not having sounds and images thrown at you, an external stimulus. And it's difficult because it's a vulnerable place to put yourself in,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're
Yeah.
not in a, like, good mental state,
Yes.
right? If you're dealing with anything at all, no matter, like, budget problems, or you got, even if it's just like you have a project you can't figure out the next steps to, you often try and, like, and I used to be really good at allowing my subconscious to figure out the problem while I did something else. And I've found that as I've gotten older, the problems I've thrown at my subconscious maybe are a little more complex, and it's not able to figure them out as good as it used to, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just not, the subconscious and conscious are closer together. I don't know what the problem is. It's not doing what it used to do. It's not solving all my problems for me the way it used to. Right. So I think I need to personally put a little more time to be intentional about why I want to do what I do. Why do you make things? Right. It's that,
Yeah.
is it because you have things in your mind you want to get out? Is it because you're stuck in an office all day and you don't feel like that creativity? You're stuck on a train all day, you don't feel like you can get any of that creativity out? Whatever it is. Yeah. So that's a really great point. Adam, you got any thoughts on how to deal with your short attention span?
Um, I don't know. Like this, I think this is the problem that I do have, is I don't know how to deal with my short attention span. I I struggle so, like, I hate the thought of, no, not the thought. Like, I hate being alone. I hate being in silence.
Mm,
It's something I've dealt with for a while, and I've always hated that I do. That if my wife's home, I want to get shit done. I want to clean up the garage or work on the
right.
bike or whatever. But if I'm home alone, I don't have the energy to do it.
Right.
It's not that I'm trying to get away from my wife. It's just that I'm alone and I don't want to do anything when I'm alone. Like, it's such a weird thing, and it's so annoying because that's the one time I should be doing shit, is when I am alone. I
Yeah.
should be spending time with her, and I don't know. Yeah,
I-
it's a
If you figure that out, whatever's causing that, please share it here, because I know you're not alone, because I have the
yeah,
same problem. It's guilt. I think it's guilt.
yeah,
And I think, like, so the guilt is, while you're with someone, you're reminded of all the shit you said you would do for them, whether it's
yeah,
for them exactly,
That's a
or,
good point.
like, whatever. And when you're alone, you're just like reminded of you're guilty of like I work myself so hard. I'm always
Yeah, that's a
putting
good
into like
point. Yeah,
I deserve a break, right?
yeah,
And you've got no one around to like remind you that there's guilt there. I don't know.
yeah.
So
Maybe.
yeah, that's a really good one. Have you got anything else to add on that, Jesse?
Oh, let me think for a second.
It's okay if you
My head is
don't. I just
going
thought you
a little
did.
slow. I think I did for a moment, but it completely just left my
All right.
brain. So
So
we're good.
one of the ways that I try and deal with this like attention span problem is I take my phone and I put it in a physically away from me, either in a different room or across the room. So a
Mhm.
lot of times this has to do with like I'm playing with my kids and I want to be there with my kids, but kids are inherently
Boring.
they can be no, but they have like these little times where they're going to spend like 30 seconds to 5 minutes just saying weird
Yeah,
words that don't have anything to do with like, and they're like playing by themselves. So there's nothing you need to do to just watch them. And after 30 seconds of watching them, you're like, okay, I've seen this. I'm ready for a new input, right? And that's when I'm like, I guess I'll check my phone. And then all of a sudden, the 5 minutes gone up, and they've asked me a question 15 times in a row, and I go, "Ooh, sorry, I didn't." Right, I didn't recognize that you were trying to talk to me again. I thought you were playing with the Hot Wheels by yourself. And so what I've
yeah,
started doing is I try, and I'm not very good at it, but I try and put my phone in another location far away so that if I need to look at it, I get up and have to look at it, right? Like
yeah. I've done that.
I am being
Done that. Yeah.
intentional about going and doing that. So I know I'm not doing it just out of like habit because it's sitting there and all of a sudden I'm like watching a YouTube video.
So it's the real world version of the deleting Twitter. You're making it an extra task to
Right.
accomplish what you think you want, so that you're like, oh, do I really want to go get my phone and check it and have this? My problem is with my phone is that and I'm sure you probably do too. Actually, you have notifications turned off, but if I get a notification, I have to clear it.
Right. Me too. That's why I have most of them turned off. I don't have all of
And
them turned
that's
off.
yeah, and that's why like I'm constantly checking my phone in my pocket to see if I need to clear something. Not because I want to look on my phone. Like I don't really scroll Facebook much. I more scroll Reels a lot. But
Right.
like my wife and I, we watch if I've got the next day off, if I've got like tonight off sort of thing, we'll watch TV together before we go to bed. I won't touch my phone the whole time. I'll happily just watch the TV because I can't focus on two things at once. I am either if I look at my phone, I completely disregard the TV. So if we're watching something you haven't seen, I don't know what's happened. You know? Whereas
Yeah.
like I can just completely just watch the TV and not touch my phone once, unless like if I see a notification pop up, I'll quickly clear it. But my wife, she'll sit on the lounge on her phone for the 2 hours straight, just scrolling Facebook and watching TV, and she knows exactly what's happening on the TV the whole time.
Right.
So I think that is a lot about how people process that amount of stimuli. Like, I don't know. I think that a lot of parents are much better at getting like multiple inputs, whereas I can't at all. Which I think is probably part of the reason that I chose to not be a parent. Is that I don't know. I think personally, I always think about how would I feel if what I was doing right now, that other person that I'm hanging out with was doing. Like, I think I have that sort of social guilt pre-programmed into me, and
Right.
it's even worse when it comes to kids. So, like, I don't know, I'm the sort of person that like completely immerses myself into, their world while I'm there,
Wow.
because if I divert my attention, I feel awful.
So I would say you don't have kids, so I 100% used to be like that before I had
Mm.
kids. They don't fucking stop. There's 24/7. There's nothing you could do, right? Like So you can't get away from it. So you eventually develop strategies to
Yeah.
right, like, because I definitely like before I had kids, my wife would always say like, "You're so great with kids," and blah blah blah, and I was like, "Yeah, sure I am, whatever." Like it's only like we spent an hour at a wedding, and I was playing with the kids with
Hmm.
balloons or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, that was easy. It was an hour, right?" Like in my
Yeah.
mind, I was always like, I don't think I'm actually really great with kids." I'm like, I think I could spend an hour playing with a balloon. That sounds like fun. I can't spend 12 hours playing with a balloon. I can't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
know. I don't even like balloons. I do not like balloons. I don't want them in my house. It's going to be my son's birthday. I want one. One balloon is a good amount of balloons. If they're helium, I'll take two. Right? Like that's about it. I don't like. I hate when I walk through my house. When you walk past a balloon, it like fucking follows you. I'm like, get away from me. I'm going to stab you. Right? And then I do.
That's not
That's
the
what I do.
balloon. That's Pennywise holding the balloon.
I was going to say
Yeah.
that's static
It's
electricity. Is what that is.
right, or a horror movie, whichever way you want to go. Weird that Adam's like it's the horror movie. The other one's like oh, it's science, right?
I don't
So
fuck
I
with
take
Pennywise, okay? I
okay,
do not fuck with that clown.
So
It's
right,
anything but
it's
Pennywise.
funny. It's funny that you bring this up because my wife and I have always made the joke of we can't wait to be amazing grandparents
right,
because you get to have that fun with the kids and give them back. So you're not
yeah.
dealing with them 24/7. You're only dealing with them for the few hours you have them or overnight or whatever, knowing that they're going to be going
Right.
soon.
So it's like the when I do like the scout night, it's Thursday nights. It's 1 hour with. Right now we have like over 16 kids. It's a lot, and sometimes it's difficult to get all their attention and whatever. At the end of it, I'm done.
Mhm.
Right? I've spent, I need to, like, I have used up all of my attention. All of that, like, maybe there's like something to this. Like, I want to say, like, we have it harder than other generations. We have it differently than other generations, right? But there's something to this that I feel like a lot of people are unable to switch off in the way that other generations could due
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
like it got dark and I didn't have a way to make light, right? Like if you want to go back enough generations, like that's what it was. It's like, okay, I used my candle and like you can only do so much by candlelight. If you ever had the power go out and you've lit a bunch of candles, you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's not much I can do here, right?
Board
So
games.
right, yeah. And if you're lucky, board games, right? Like some of the board games, the
Mhm.
rules are so small you can't even read them by candlelight. So I think there's something to be said about how we are unable to disengage these days. And that inability to disengage is part of the problem that we're having with the short attention span. I don't know what it is. There's definitely something there. If you know what it is, let us know.
I'm curious to know. So you talked about like the generation stuff,
Yeah.
and see, it's different for us because we've done both. Like I grew
Yeah.
up with no technology, no phone. Like I mean, technology. We had TVs, and the internet came in when I was like 10. But I still remember like the first time the guy across the road from me, like the chick's dad, my friend across the road's dad, got a mobile phone, and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? Like it was a brick,
Right.
right? And then now we're going into this like literally having a more powerful computer in my pocket than I could have ever dreamed of having as a kid.
Right.
Whereas today's generation, they don't know anything other than having that computer in their pocket. And the older generation don't really like they don't really have like they don't do the technology and stuff. Like a lot of I know my mum and that do, like a lot of older people do, but I don't think they're as addicted as we are. Whereas like we're in that middle. I'd be
Right.
interested
Well,
to see what the newer generation, how it affects their attention span because I feel like we have that sort of knowledge of used to having an attention span and now not, whereas they or just either always haven't or
and so I think they're probably better at it than we are. Like we're all about the same age. On
yeah,
for whatever we're all like in our 30s.
we're all in our 30s.
Yeah, we're all in our 30s. So there's that. I think that the generation, the morally generation, uh, probably has it better than us, right? Like they actually probably because they always had it the same way that we always had electricity, right? And some of our parents probably may not have, right? Or grandparents definitely didn't, right? They didn't always have electricity, so they didn't know any better, so they didn't know how to adapt to the fact that you could be a 24/7 business,
Yeah.
right? I think there's ways that people are going to be capitalizing on this, and that's a wonderful thing. The same way that you know, there's always been people who are more willing to be awake at night. And there's people who are more willing to be awake in the morning, right?
Yeah.
There's night
Yeah.
owls and not whatever. And when the only source of light is the sun, the person awake during the day is going to be more productive than the person awake at night. Like it's just the
Yeah.
way it is. But now that we have electricity, there's going to be people who are like all of a sudden out of nowhere they can be productive anytime. And so I think there's our short attention spans could be a product of us not realizing this productivity that we're supposed to be having potentially.
Yeah. Well, I also thought of it. I don't know if it's something you said or what, but what made me think of it. My son, his one of his best friends, is addicted to his iPad. His
Yeah.
iPad goes everywhere with him. He doesn't ever want to do any sports or anything because he wants to watch YouTube, and his mum lets him, and like he's just constantly wanting to either be playing a video game or watching his iPad. Whereas my son, because my wife is very anal about not letting the kids watch too much stuff. Like they're not
Your wife is
technology
anal.
much.
Um,
She's very she is that not a term over there?
yeah,
It
Okay.
it's
is
a double
because
So she's
entendre.
he's trolling
right.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just checking it wasn't an Australian thing. So she's very anal about like technology with the kids and stuff. My
Yeah.
son, he is constantly reading books or
Shit,
wanting
we
to do
lost that.
stuff and like what?
Oh, yeah, we
You lose me?
missed part of that. Start at the beginning
Okay.
again.
Your son,
I'm not going all the way back. Yeah, so my son, like no matter where we go, he's always reading a book or wanting to get involved and all that. Like he doesn't really care too much about the iPad. Of course, he wants
Okay.
to watch movies or whatever, but I feel like we have a bit of a responsibility here,
so I
and
would
that's what I'm
I
trying to
would
get at.
love to agree with you, but as someone who tries very, 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 very hard to get my son to do anything at all, it is 100%. Like we sign him up for stuff. I do making stuff. I do all this. As soon as I showed him that videos were a thing, it's what he is interested in,
Yeah.
right? It is the way that if I'm out in public and I need him to like relax, like we're having a meal
Oh
and it's
yeah,
like
we do
taking a
that
long
too.
time, we just give him you give him the phone,
Yeah.
right? Like I hate it. I feel like a bad parent. And I'm like, we go on hikes, and while we're on that hike, if as long as we don't stop moving, we're good to go. But as soon as we stop moving, it's like, oh, this is taking forever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
See,
we
don't
yeah,
get me wrong. Like if we're having trouble, like we'll give our sons the phone or whatever to watch if we really need to. But I'm
yeah,
talking about like this kid lives a 1 minute drive away from his house. He's watching YouTube in the car for that
yeah.
1 minute. You know,
Well,
like
guess what?
that's where I'm
That might
saying
be
it's
the
too much.
only way that
No,
parent
it's not.
can get them into the car,
It's not.
and
Like
that's
I know the parents. We hang out with the parents all the time. It's just that the kid is literally addicted to the iPad.
right. And potentially is. I don't know if it has anything to do with short attention spans or anything else, but I will. I before I was a parent, I would have blamed parents for everything. Now that
Yeah.
I'm a parent, I want to
True.
give them some grace. I want to give everyone in the world some grace and say, guess what? I have no clue where you're coming from. I don't know what's happening in your life. If I see someone doing something that I don't understand and why they're doing it, or I think they're doing something just like, unless it's like, and even when it's illegal, sometimes illegal shit shouldn't be illegal. But whatever, we won't get into that political bullshit. But I, I don't really want like you're probably doing your best.
Yeah.
Eh, and you're probably
I believe
doing what you
everyone's
think
doing
is
their
right.
best.
Right. So, if you know who's really doing
Every
their
single
best,
person.
the Patreon supporters. That's right.
Not every
Especially
single person, Adam. Only the
Yeah.
Patreon.
Every single person is doing their best.
especially the Patreon supporters. And I especially want to thank the F-Clamp levels. If you want to sign up and get your name read out, there is, I think, one spot left, maybe 2 spots left for the F-Clamp level. Or else if you just want to see your name in the show notes every week, there's the C-Clamp level. And if you just want to support us, there's the Spring Clamp level, because everyone knows that spring clamps are wonderful and you need lots of them, but they don't put the most pressure. Not like F clamps. F clamps have the most pressure and they give us the most I don't know, money, really. So Scott from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, Rich from Low End Designs, David Wood from DW Wood Builds, Brad from I'm Gonna Make, and Chad from Chad's Custom Creations. Thank you to all of you and everyone who supports us. If you feel like you get $1 out of this episode, you can support us there. If you want to hear a pre-show where we talk about what we've been up to that week, we want to talk about the after show. There's also one of those where we sometimes talk about secret stuff. But you can go over to patreon.com/clamp. You also get a keychain that I make, which is made of leather and very exciting. It's a numbered keychain. So go on over to there. We appreciate. If you can't support us, we understand. Not everyone can support us financially. You just head on over to our show and share it on a social media platform or in real life. The biggest way for a podcast to grow, in my opinion, is for you to physically talk to someone and say, listen to Clamp. It is the way that will let us grow. If you feel like we have a great conversation, that's what I hope you do. It means the world to us and everyone who shares our episodes. But if you actually tell someone that we're a good podcast, it would mean a lot to me, and I'm sure the Jessy and Adam as well. But with that, on to CLAMPmendations.
CLAMPmendations. Okay, so another spooky CLAMPmendation this week. Yet another horror podcast. So the one for this week is Random Number Generator Horror Podcast number 9, which is quite a mouthful, but it is one of the best horror podcasts that I listen to. It's actually the same guys who do Night Vale. I have listened to very little Night Vale. I somehow came at this backwards. And I love their niche horror podcast instead of their gigantic, amazing thing that everyone I know loves and has told me to listen to forever. But yeah, so it's Jeffrey Kainer and Cecil Baldwin. And Cecil loves horror, Jeffrey not so much. So yeah, they watch a horror movie and then sort of discuss it. And I love hearing the reactions of people who are not into horror or who don't really understand what's happening. I just really like seeing it from another side because I have been so deep in horror for so much of my life that like all the references make sense and all of the tropes make sense. So yeah,
And maybe next week we might talk about some of that.
Uh-huh.
And this is like a little sneak peek for those who are listening. We're gonna have maybe a little Halloween episode next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I hope
it's gonna be Halloween. It's gonna be Halloween.
But if you don't celebrate Halloween,
well, fuck you.
Then what's wrong?
Fuck you. Yeah. Get a life. Don't listen to the podcast. No, I don't know. Adam, why you gotta ruin shit? Fuck you. Go.
Okay, speaking of spooky, my CLAMPmentation this week is a movie called Escape the Field. It's got Theo Rossi in it, or Juice from Sons of Anarchy. And essentially, him and a group of people are stuck in a cornfield and have to escape.
Cool.
Oh.
They're kidnapped and they're getting murdered, and they get murdered. And it's a very good movie. It's a bit of a, what do they call them? B grade movie. But it's
yeah. Okay. So I don't need to take it seriously. It's just fun.
Yeah, it feels like it was meant to be an A grade movie, but without the budget. So it's like a lot of just
uh,
like cornfield.
yeah. I'm
A
watching
lot
them
of
clearly on
cornfield.
silent right now.
Yeah, it's a good movie, though.
Well,
Lots of heavy
since
breathing.
we're talking about horror, which I don't know how we ever get on the topic of horror on this baking podcast, but we somehow get on there often.
Uh huh.
I'm gonna recommend everyone check out Walking Dead: World Beyond. So it is a The Walking Dead, if you've ever heard of it. The It's a show set 10 years in the future, from a zone that was relatively safe from the zombie apocalypse, due to some partnerships with and there's and it's the what happened at the 10-year mark. The nice thing about it is, unlike Walking Dead, they had a start and finish to it, so they saw where it was going and didn't fuck off in the middle of it and don't know where they're going and screw everything up. So it's only 2 seasons. It was meant to be 2 seasons. So at the end of 2 seasons, I won't say that every single question that could ever be answered in that is answered, but they try and like wrap up storylines, as opposed to Walking Dead, where they just kill off your favorite character and then you stop watching.
Yep, that's what happened. Oh,
Right. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it was filmed during COVID, so also kind of interesting that way. That it's like a recent filming of something. It's
yeah.
got one character from Walking Dead is in it.
Oh, okay.
Only
So a
one
little
that
bit
I
of a
know of.
crossover.
It
Okay.
is, and it's like a not a like one of the main group of characters, but someone they meet along the way ends up being in
Okay.
this world as well.
So I just got on IMDb to look this up because I was trying to think which one of the sort of offshoot Walking Dead shows did I see? I have no idea. There are tons of them now.
Yeah.
Like, Fear the Walking Dead now has multiple paths, it looks like.
Oh
What is
yeah.
happening?
So I started
Because
watching
there's.
Fear the Walking Dead, and I really liked it, and then it went way too far too fast. I
Is
really
that the
love
one
the
that is in
idea.
California?
Yeah. But
Okay,
like
that
the
is the one that we started and never got anywhere.
so I really liked the fact that it was like it's going to tell the story of like the first couple weeks, and that
Hmm.
was like season 1, episode 1, and that was it. And I was like, you got me like on board to watch this thing that you did not. I'll have to say, what's the Ask Us Anything this week?
Ask us anything. So the Ask Us Anything this week is from DW
You know what? I
Woodbuilds.
just want to say that your glasses are the problem here.
My glasses are
That's the
the
problem.
problem.
Yeah, that's the real problem. It's
Oh.
an
What
ad hominem attack. Sorry.
Oh. Yeah, I wasn't
problem?
following.
Problem with what?
Exactly. Just keep
It was
just read the
supposed to be
question.
a joke, but see, me and Adam go like serious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me and
like what the
Adam
fuck are
do
you
not
talking
know
about?
what a joke is sometimes. Okay, anyway, so ask us anything from DW Woodbuilds. Number one question asker: how to deal with ad hominem attacks. Grant throws them out.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I
a fucking
delete and block.
abnob. A what?
Like a personal attack, like a name calling or like talking about someone
So
nasty and
an
personally.
ad hominem attack, like Jesse said, it's the instead of attacking the position that the person is presenting, or the whatever you're presenting. So if you were trying to like put something out there and they're saying that you clearly are not very good at it because you have glasses.
Right.
Has the glasses has nothing to do with anything, right? Or like you're not a good maker because you're over 6 feet tall. And all good make like for some reason that becomes the thing they're attacking instead of whatever you're doing, right? So an ad hominem attack is something where they're instead of attacking whatever they're presenting, they attack the person, right? So if you're trying to say like this is how you cut wood, and they're saying you can't cut wood because you're white, you're like, what does that have anything to do with it, right?
I don't know if I've ever had one of those.
You in your life, you definitely have.
Oh,
If you've ever presented an argument and someone called you a name in response, you definitely have. If they said you're stupid, that's
oh, my wife says that every
you've
day.
had great, so perfect. You've had an ad hominem attack, but so Jesse, how do you deal with it on Instructables when people are attacking the people instead of responding to the potential problems with a build? Let's do with it like that.
So I have a major policy of not engaging.
Okay.
Because much like we were talking earlier about giving people a little grace because you don't really know what's going on the internet, if someone's being an asshole, they're going to double down, most likely, is what I've found through the
Right.
years. So I just don't engage. If things are bad enough, if it's like nasty enough that I'm like, oh, it gets deleted. Sometimes people get blocked. But yeah, overall, the policy is just do not engage because you're just going to come out looking worse and they are probably not going to leave you alone after that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and turns out I have more thoughts about this because it's
Okay.
something that we've dealt with a few times recently. I think another thing that it's important to be mindful of, and I think we've talked about it before, is just the weird parasocial relationships that people, I don't know, end up having with like companies and celebrities and that sort of thing. So another reason I don't engage is that there are many times that someone has created this whole narrative where they're the center of it and they have been wronged.
Right.
And it is really hard to combat that gracefully without sounding condescending or like you actually know what's going on in the situation. So when it comes to personal attacks online, it's just lose lose. So yeah, it's better to just not engage, ignore, and realize that they are very unhappy and you don't have to be unhappy with them.
Well, I didn't even know what the word meant, so I don't know. I don't have an answer.
So if somebody said you're not good at that because you're fat, what would you say?
I'll just ignore it.
So you'd ignore. That's cool. That's it. That's a good response. So you would ignore ad hominem attacks.
So the difference between someone just calling me fat and whatever that word is, attack, is that they're calling me fat that I can't do something because of it.
Well, your position, right? Like you're not good at doing motorcycle stuff because you're a train operator.
Yeah,
right. Like, it has nothing to do with whether or not you're good at motorcycles repair. Right. It has everything.
Yeah.
Like so, what they're doing is they're saying they're bringing in irrelevant data to try and it's about you as a person, right? Like you're not good at Japanese motorcycles because you're white. Like that doesn't have anything to do with.
Yeah,
like, it's all these things that just don't make any sense.
So I suppose I didn't really ever know that was a specific thing. I would have more just taken it as I would have ignored the first part and just gone, "Why are you calling me white or fat?" Or like just assume that they're calling me something and not saying I can't do something because of it.
Right. So that's great. So it's actually, instead of ignoring it, you're actually facing it head on. Right. So the ad hominem attacks happen often when somebody, like politics is a good one, where it's like your economic policy is no good because you cheated on your wife. Well, what does that have anything to do with economic policy? Sure, if you want to talk about like the sanctity of marriage and you cheated on your wife, that makes sense. We want to bring that in.
Yeah.
You want to talk about like whether or not you should give a tax break to billionaires, well, it has nothing to do with whether or not you cheated on your wife, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's where ad hominem. So what you're saying, you would probably like see the attack as you need to address the attack. Why
Yeah.
are
Like
you saying that? So
if
address
someone
it head
if
on. I
someone
like it.
said to me, yeah, like if someone said to me, "Oh, you can't fix a motorbike because you're fat," I would only be looking at the fact that they called me fat. I wouldn't even occur to me that they're saying that's why I can't do something.
Right. Yeah. So I would think that if someone was attacking, so this happens in my real job. It happens online, obviously, all the time. Like people just call you names, right? That's like the lowest level of ad hominem attacks. Just people calling you
Because
like
it's you,
the R
anonymous.
word or whatever. But in my real job, people question my character or question my credentials because they're being investigated and because
Right.
they're getting defensive because they've often whenever it happens, it's often because they've screwed up and they don't want to be caught and they think that I have some sort of like stick that I'm going to beat them with, like, which is not my role, but whatever. They've gotten that way, right? It's when people start going, well, like, you couldn't understand us because you're not in you've never been in the military. It's like, well, it's not relevant to the question I'm asking, right?
Yeah.
So the way I deal with ad hominem attacks is by like explaining it's not relevant and asking the people, like, I have authority in these like people need to respond to me, so it's a little different. Online, if someone attacks me, I try and be clever, and when that doesn't work, I cry a little bit. No, but I like honestly, I probably would like I try and be clever, and when I can't think of something clever, I ask Chris Powell or Austin Saunders for a clever response. And if they don't get back to me fast enough, then I just block the guy and move on with my life. So that's the best way online. That's the best way to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, and also I think something pretty important about ad hominem attacks is that it's something that you should not have to defend. It's
Right.
something so irrational and stupid and unrelated that, yeah, it can shut your brain down because you will feel like you need to defend against whatever has been said. Like that will be like the gut reaction because it's so ridiculous that you want to be like, well, no, I would never act with it, but it just doesn't make it any better. Like, so I
Right.
also try to keep that in mind. Like, this
Right. If
doesn't
they say
matter
something
to
like,
anyone ever except
you can't be a welder because you're a woman, and you're like, women can do anything, right? Well, it's like,
Well, I'm sure women deal with it a lot more
oh,
then
yeah.
because there'd be a lot of like you. I'm not taking my car to that mechanic. She's a woman.
right.
Women don't know how
Or,
to
I mean,
fix
even
cars.
being a
Like,
manager in retail or food and constantly being said, I need to talk to a manager. I walk up and they say, no, the manager. Like, I
Right.
can't be because I'm a small woman. Okay.
Right. Right. So, how to deal with ad hominem attacks is fuck those people. But I want to thank TF Turning for the theme song. If you want to find us, you can find us collectively by searching for Clampcast on all the social media places, or you can find Adam at Maker Mackie and BKR Motorcycle Builds or whatever he calls himself now. I can't read this; too small.
BKR Custom Motorworks.
Yeah, and you can find Grant at the Grant Alexander and Jesse at Jessy Ratfink. And if you want, you can leave us a review. We'd really appreciate any stars. We'll read any stars at all. We'd appreciate
Just give
5,
us a
but we'll read
review.
any. Just give us a review, please. Until next time, cheers and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.